Hi, everybody. I'm Howard Tiersky. Welcome to today's live cast, and happy Inauguration Day, by the way. Today, our topic is Facebook, and very specifically, what's the biggest mistake that Facebook is making right now? Because I think there's a big mistake that they're making, and I'm sympathetic, by the way, to why they're making this mistake. But nevertheless, I think it's a huge mistake, and it's a huge potential pothole that any of us can run into as we start to look more and more at artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other types of advanced technologies as part of our digital experience. So let me tell you what I mean, and I'm going to bring up a slide here. So I use Facebook all the time, and I'm sure that many of you probably do as well. And underlying Facebook, there's incredible intelligence, various algorithms that are trying to make sure you have the very best possible experience. Of course, the Netflix documentary, The Social Network, postulated, and I talked about this in a previous live cast, that potentially they have become so good at creating an experience that you love that they're dangerous because they have too much control over you, because they are so good at delivering exactly what it is that you want that it becomes addictive. That's not what I'm here to talk about today, though, but it just makes the point of how powerful the AI in Facebook is and how much it's, at the very least, creating an experience that people really love and really find sticky. And I would argue it's also giving people great benefit. Although, of course, there's many examples where it's allowing the wrong types of information to be bubbled up as well. Again, that's not what I'm talking about primarily today. Hey, Samuel. Hey, Hamid. Great to have you guys. But just as the point of the importance of the AI as part of the kind of Facebook value proposition, what makes it so powerful. What I want to talk about today, though, is the role of AI in Facebook's advertising and how that has now created a major problem in Facebook's business that I think is going to grow. And I want to highlight it because I want to make sure that we're all learning from that. Facebook, we could see as kind of a leader, right? Someone who's out in front on some of these things. They've done many positive things that have been beneficial, but they're doing some things that I think are also harming their business. And I want to highlight that as well. Because, all this AI is great, but we wouldn't be the first people, decades back, movies and other things have envisioned a world in which the intelligence of computers becomes too great and becomes a threat to humanity. Now, I'm not here to suggest that Facebook has necessarily become a threat to humanity. I think there are those that might argue that, though, based on what's going on with our politics today. But that's not so much my point today. But we're going to look at a different angle, a more of a business-related angle, where I think that giving too much control and too much power to their artificial intelligence is, while a major part of the benefit of their business, also harming their business. So where does Facebook make their money? Again, in the movie The Social Network, the point is made very clearly. The source of Facebook's money is not you, the customer. Now, I should say not you, the typical user, not the person who posts on Facebook, not the person who consumes Facebook, not even the person who's on Facebook all day long on their phone. Because in general, we're not paying Facebook any money. Facebook's money, of course, is coming from their advertisers. And Facebook has a fantastic, in many ways, platform, Facebook Ads, Facebook Business Manager, which allows advertisers to target ads to individuals based on a wide range of different criteria. Everything from your location, to your age, to your gender, to your past purchase patterns, the types of content that you look at on Facebook, the types of interests that you have, and even whether you've engaged with that brand in the past. If someone has viewed one of your videos in the past on Facebook, you can target just those people. The targeting features that Facebook have built into their platform to allow advertisers to access the right people, and then to track and measure that over time to see what's working and what's not working, and to tune it. They are absolutely world leading. They are absolutely fantastic. And that's why Facebook has become one of the largest advertisers in terms of one of the largest platforms that's generating ad revenue in the world. Clearly, that's what's driven the vast majority of their success. And between Facebook and Google, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I believe that together they now account for more advertising dollars than the entire television industry, for example. And it's probably greater than that. We did a live cast previously where we looked at some stats like that. So the desirability to advertisers to use this platform is enormous. So kudos to Facebook for creating a product, not only for creating a product that is so desirable to end customers, but for creating a product that is so desirable to advertisers. And the AI is part of what makes the Facebook ads platform so desirable to advertisers, because is that AI that is able to say to the advertiser, let me just target people who are interested in purchasing a home. Let me just target people who have skin problems with their skin or whatever. And how does Facebook know that? Well, of course, that's the AI. That's by combining a whole bunch of signals together and figuring out how to package that up into a segment that they can say to an advertiser, hey, if you have a solution to this problem, you can show those ads just to the people who have that problem. You know, in advertising, for decades, there's been that kind of classic half joke, which is half of your marketing budget is wasted. The problem is you just don't know which half. And that was a lot because traditional advertising, you put an ad on a television show or you put an ad in the newspaper. And of course, a lot of the people that you're paying to reach, they're not appropriate for your product. If you're selling women's shoes, half the people reading the newspaper are men, right? If you're selling a drug, many of the people who are watching that commercial, they don't have the disease or condition that uses that drug. So of course, they're not going to buy your drug. And of course, if we can make our advertising more targeted, we have the potential to make a lot more money on advertising, because that advertiser is probably willing to pay just as much to only reach the men if they have a product only for men, and then some other advertiser wants to reach the women, and now you can actually charge much more per impression in advertising. And that's exactly what Facebook does and what Google does and what YouTube does and Instagram and many other of the most successful ad platforms today. So what's the problem? What's the problem? Well, Facebook is also using AI to figure out who to turn off, who to limit. And one very recent example of that, and we saw very prominently over the last couple of weeks, Trump and some other top politicians have been kicked off Twitter and Facebook and other places. Now, of course, those decisions, I'm sure, are made in a boardroom, right? The decision to turn off Donald Trump's Twitter feed was not, I'm sure, made by AI, but made by the leaders of the company, because he's such a high-profile individual. But the challenge that a platform like Facebook has is that while they may be thinking individually about what to do about Donald Trump, they've got millions and hundreds of millions of people posting content on that platform. They obviously can't have a boardroom meeting about every single one of them. And so they look to AI to try to figure out who's breaking the rules, who is doing hate speech, who is promoting drugs, who is promoting violence, who's engaging in the kind of content that Facebook doesn't want on their platform. And they've been doing a series of crackdowns. This is just one article from November about how Facebook is cracking down on hate speech. And they have canceled and kicked off thousands and thousands of accounts that are focused on those types of negative things on Facebook. And of course, I'm using Facebook as an example here because they have, I think, problems that are worse than some of the other social platforms, but they're certainly not the only one doing this. So you might say, well, what's the problem? When I read an article like this, I think, great, I'll give that a Facebook thumbs up, right? I love the fact that they're using artificial intelligence to figure out how to stop the false fake news, how to stop the lies, how to stop the hate speech, how to stop the promotion of violence. That in and of itself is something that I really couldn't agree with more. And of course, this goes to multiple types of content on Facebook. It goes to organic posts on Facebook. By organic, I just mean a user went in, typed the content, but it also goes to advertising, because Facebook similarly wants to make sure that there aren't ads, political ads or other ads that are promoting hate speech, et cetera, because increasingly on Facebook, if you want to reach a large audience, it's not enough to just post on Facebook. You need to put money behind it. You need to boost that post. This is how Facebook's making so much money. If you just want to reach your friends with a picture of your dog, then sure, just post that on Facebook. But if you have an important message that you want to reach a large number of people, then Facebook is ready to take your money to help amplify that message, which fundamentally is great, as long as your message is not one that is in violation of Facebook's purpose and is socially undesirable and is something that it makes more sense to prevent. So all that's good, but I'm trying to really I want to paint the picture here and get to where the problem is. Here's the problem. Facebook restricts the accounts when the artificial intelligence determines that you've broken the rules. When the artificial intelligence says, wait a minute, you are bad, I'm going to turn you off. That's when your account gets restricted. And at that point, there are a variety of different levels of restrictions, but I'm focused today on advertising restriction. So at a certain point, Facebook will say, nope, you are bad. We are no longer going to permit you to advertise. We're going to turn you off. And once they do that, all the tools and features of Facebook, which allow you to publish ads, they're turned off. They're grayed out for you. You can't use them anymore. Facebook will not take your money anymore. Now, again, I applaud Facebook for saying they're not going to take the money from bad guys who are looking to do something nefarious. We'd rather not have Facebook just happily taking their money. And obviously they've been criticized. And this is one of the reasons I'm sympathetic for their situation. They've been vastly criticized, for example, during the 2016 election for taking money from Russia and other groups that were trying to undermine the election. And I'm not trying to get into politics here, but only to emphasize that I understand that Facebook's under a lot of pressure to make sure that they're not taking money from people who are doing something bad on Facebook. And so, in order to deal with the massive number of advertisers they have and content posters, they have artificial intelligences looking for that bad stuff. But the problem is that Facebook is restricting huge numbers of customers who, generally speaking, let us say, are not bad, are not doing anything wrong. And if you go on Google and you search Facebook ad restricted, check this out. I did this morning. 194 million results of people talking about the fact that their Facebook accounts have been restricted. And restricted is Facebook's nice way of saying we're kicking you off the platform. And you can see on Reddit, you can see on Facebook itself, there are endless groups of people saying, uh-oh, my business is relying on my Facebook ads. I've been running Facebook ads for my dry cleaners or my lawn mowing service or whatever it is for ages. And all of a sudden, Facebook has pulled the plug on me. All of a sudden, Facebook told me, they sent me one of these messages. They said, you're not allowed to advertise anymore because you've violated our policies. And I can tell you that I know many, many, many people who've had this problem. And many of the people that are posting online about this are not in that category of someone doing something quote unquote bad. Now you could argue, well, who's to say? How do you know, right? A terrorist could go online and say, I'm innocent, help me get my ad account reinstated on Facebook. That's not 194 million posts. That might be a few of them, but that's not the bulk. In fact, check out this article from Business Insider, a business owner who spent nearly $46 million on Facebook advertising. So this is not just the small things. They've been booted out of the platform without any explanation. And this is the other problem of what Facebook is doing with their AI. The explanation that you get when you're booted off the Facebook platform is you have violated the guidelines. That's the explanation. And when you say, okay, well, what specifically, they send you a link to the guidelines and then you can read the guidelines. And there are a bunch of guidelines. Don't promote guns, don't promote violence, don't promote hate speech, don't promote alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. Don't use the Facebook logo in the wrong way in your ad. It goes on for 6 or 7 or 10 pages or something with rules like that. But the rules are specific. Most of the people who are having this problem are saying the same thing, by the way, that I'm saying, because I have had this problem myself repeatedly as an advertiser on Facebook. I haven't broken any of those rules. Facebook, give me guidance on where I've gone wrong. And Facebook refuses. In this example of this article, a business owner who spent $46 million on Facebook, I emailed that to a number of friends of mine who are big Facebook advertisers. And you know what I heard back from many of them? 46 million? I've spent more than that on Facebook, and they keep booting me off the platform. So there's a fundamental problem here, and I can't help but worry. These decisions are being made by algorithms, and they're wrong. They're wrong decisions, right? They're wrong for Facebook and they're wrong for the advertiser. Now, I'm not saying they're all wrong. And of course, you could argue, hey, anybody who gets booted off probably has an argument of why, it's wrong, right? Trump lost the election and he's got an argument why that's wrong. So you have to wonder how many of these are really people who are breaking the rules. They just don't want to admit it. Well, let's take me as an example because I've been booted off Facebook repeatedly. So I just want to share my story with you. Not to vent, but to illustrate the problem that happens when a company has AI that has too much power, and even how the people at the company that want to help and serve their customers become powerless because the AI is too powerful. So I just want you to understand the kind of ads that I run on Facebook. These are some of my ads, right? Buy my book for $9.99. Could this book change the trajectory of your company? Kevin O'Leary was kind enough to do a video promoting the book. I've put that video up on Facebook. And also, it's not only about my book. I have other content that people can, we like to build our mailing list. So we put on Facebook ad, get a free special report, 12 types of data that are key to an effective customer experience. I host webinars. By the way, these are all in the past, so don't click on these. But come to our website, winningdigitalcustomers.com, if you want to be on our mailing list, and we will be happy to send you all the cool stuff that we have. But in any case, these are just examples from the past. And I wanted to show you these, and of course, there's dozens more, but they're all like this. There, I'm having a webinar on this business topic. I'm doing this PDF, enter your email if you want to download it. This is like so much of the advertising that's on Facebook. In other words, there's nothing in these ads that violate any of the rules that Facebook has defined. And of course, it's always possible that somewhere in some aspect of these ads or something that we're doing violates some interpretation of some Facebook rule in some way that we don't realize or understand. But if that's the case, the algorithm doesn't talk to us, and the people can't explain it because they don't even understand the algorithm. And therefore, there's no way for us to find out what actually is upsetting the algorithm and causing us to be booted off Facebook. So here's my story. Here's the actual sequence of events that occurred with us with Facebook. First of all, about maybe a year ago, something like that, we decided to do some Facebook advertising. So we created a Facebook advertising account. Of course, I've been on Facebook as a regular user and posted content for years and years. But we created an account and we ran a few ads, just like the ones I showed you before, with some success. Put the ads in front of people in business. Many of them clicked. They gave us their email. We sent them our PDFs, and as is a normal business marketing process. So that went fine for a few months. So we added a little more. Instead of running only 2 or 3 ads, we started to run 8, 9 different ads. We targeted, instead of just 1 or 2 different groups, we started to add more groups to target. It's because we wanted to test and see, well, what about this type of customer? What about that type of customer? In other words, we were increasing our share of wallet. We were giving more marketing dollars to Facebook. We were buying more of their stuff, is exactly what we were doing. And what happened? Well, of course, they shut us down. They restricted our account. They blocked all of our advertising, and they would not give us a reason. But the one thing that Facebook does do is they allow you to appeal. You can go say, hey, you've blocked me. I don't think this is right. Please reconsider. So all of a sudden, we had no ads running on Facebook. All the things that we were our business was anticipating and relying on in terms of our Facebook ads as part of our marketing program were zeroed out because Facebook had blocked us. But 10 days later, after we requested a review, they reinstated us. They said, hey, we're sorry about that. We reviewed your account and, we've reinstated you. Now, before I get to number 6, I should add, we responded and said, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Would you please tell us why it was we were restricted in the first place? Because we don't want to do that again. We don't want this to happen again. Is there anything we can do to prevent it? And the response was, don't worry, it's nothing. We've reinstated your account. So fine. We continued to advertise. A week or so later, the account is restricted again. Again, no reason given. So we're, of course, rather miffed, and we get, but then the next day I get an email from Facebook and it says, hi, Howard, finding ways to improve your advertising results can be challenging. As a valued customer, and I got to tell you, I wasn't feeling too valued at this point, our team is here to provide you with guidance and make things easier. And below in this email, there's a link that I can get help from a Facebook marketing expert. And I thought, well, this is well timed because I really do need help. So, and this was free. So here's Facebook marketing to somebody that they want to help me use their platform more, but I'm the person who they just said was undesirable and kicked off the platform twice. Okay, so I get on the phone. So basically there's a link, you click, you create an appointment, and you get on the phone with a Facebook marketing expert. So I do this, and a day or two later, I'm on the phone. I got a 30-minute appointment. And he starts and he says, here's what I want to do. I want to go through your ads. I want to look at what you're doing, and I want to help you figure out how you can get more value from the Facebook platform. I said, that sounds great, but here's the problem. I've been blocked from the Facebook platform. I can't use it. I've been restricted because they say I broke the rules. Now, this guy had no idea about that. He was surprised. It wasn't, in other words, this wasn't related to that. They just saw that I'm someone who'd spent money on Facebook and didn't seem to be aware of the fact that they just blocked me, because clearly the marketing programs weren't somehow connected to the AI that was figuring out who was a bad actor on Facebook. So our whole conversation became about how to get reinstated on Facebook. And I should add that what I heard from this guy is, this is a super common problem. We're really sorry. I'll do my best. We can't always fix it. The platform does this a lot, was really what I heard from the guy at Facebook that I talked to. But he said, here's what I can do for you. We have a concierge team that will sort of give you more hand-holding for people who are larger advertisers. Now, you're not that big of an advertiser, but I'm going to nevertheless give you concierge support. So they'll personally take a look at your account and figure out what's wrong and help you. And I said, wow, that's great. And that's great customer service, right? Here's somebody telling me, recognizing I have a problem and saying they want to help. He said, because we want you to be a Facebook advertiser. We really value you. You know, he was clearly trained, though he had a script, right? And he kept saying how valued I was. Facebook likes to use this word, I'm valued, right? And so I said, okay, great. Let's fix it. I'm happy to fix it. So I said, he connected me with, and there's a couple of back and forths here. He connected me with people in the concierge team. And I emailed them and I said, hey, listen, you know, I'm very discouraged and frustrated. We keep getting shut down. We're running very above the board ads, as you can see here at the top of my slide. The best of our knowledge, we're doing nothing wrong. If there is something we're doing, please tell us. We are not violating any of the rules and any of the materials that you provided. Please help us. I am mystified as to why Facebook considers us such an undesirable customer. And by the way, I just really want to emphasize, I'm telling you the story not to vent about our situation, but I have heard from so many people that this is their exact same experience. So this is not some weird outlier situation. This is how Facebook treats its customers. Maybe not every single customer, but a lot. That's why there's 194 million people on Google complaining about this and asking, how can I fix this? By the way, it speaks to the fact that Facebook's core product is excellent, because many businesses, if they treated their customers this way, their customers would just leave. They wouldn't be posting on Reddit and Facebook and trying to figure out how to fix the problem. They would say, these guys are crazy rude. I'm going to go find someplace else to bring my business. But Facebook has such scale and such excellent targeting capabilities that customers are willing to try to figure out, up to a certain point, how to make it work. Although I'll tell you, I also see a lot of other companies advertising for YouTube ads and other kinds of advertising using this argument, saying Facebook is going to kick you off. In fact, Russell Brunson, who's one of the leading marketing influencers and thought leaders, talks about Thanos from the Marvel films and how he can snap and, you know, destroy half the universe, if you're familiar with the character Thanos from the Marvel Avengers movies, and that Facebook's like that. And don't get your business too reliant on Facebook as a means of generating business and leads, because one day Mark Zuckerberg is going to snap his fingers, so says Russell Brunson, and he's going to kill you. Now, of course, Mark Zuckerberg's not really snapping his fingers. It's the algorithm. But nevertheless, this is the risk that Facebook creates for their customers. And obviously, this is an enormous amount of customer pain. But so here's the good news. Look, if you look at the lower half of the slide, after I sent my appeal to the concierge help, he said, Howard, thanks for reaching out to us. We've reactivated your advertising account, and you should now be able to create new ads. Sorry for any inconvenience this may have caused, he says at the bottom. Thanks for your understanding. And you know what? I believe that this is sincere. I'm interacting with a human being. This human being says he's reactivated my ads account, and he really is sorry for the negative experience that I've had. So I really appreciate that. So what happens then? Well, I send this message the next day. Hi, thank you so much for determining that my account should still be reactivated. I want to remind you that despite the decision that you notified me of 24 hours ago, the account is still restricted. In other words, they sent me a nice email. The people sent me a nice email saying, we've taken care of it. Your account, you can now run ads. But the algorithm was not cool with that, because when I went into the actual Facebook ad manager, I was still restricted to not run ads. So I'm reminding them, hey, I'm trying to be real nice here. You can see me being really nice, right? Because they're treating me like, you know, I don't want to say a really bad word, but they're treating me pretty bad as a customer. And I'm nicely saying, hey, you know, could you please turn my account back on? So, okay, so what happens next? So I get another email from a different person saying, I've looked at your account, I've checked it, I don't see any restrictions on it anymore. And by the way, it says here, Facebook uses a combination of systems to review an account, wherein the former systems sometimes result in false positives based on similar experiences. I'd like to ensure you are equipped to handle anything similar to this you may encounter in the future. Basically, but he's saying your ad account is back on. This is the next day. I say, great. However, my account is still restricted. So I'm having this absurd back and forth with Facebook where they're saying, the people are saying, we told the algorithm that you're okay and you should be able to run ads, but I can't, right? I can't. I keep going in, and this is what I'm getting from the system. I can't run ads. So there's that. And then finally, after me going back and forth with them saying, we fixed it, you can run ads, and me saying, no, I can't, I finally get this message. After further review of your account, we found you didn't comply with our advertising policies, and you will no longer be allowed to advertise or access features, etc. So now they're saying, actually, we don't want you as a customer after it. And I've abbreviated this. I haven't shown you every single back and forth because you'd probably be bored to tears. But I would say on at least 10 occasions, I sent messages to Facebook, literally begging them to explain to us what we were doing wrong so that we could stop. If you want to create rules and governance around something, you need to do what I call support for the law abiding. You can tell people the rules. It is possible that people are trying to follow the rules, but they've misunderstood something in the rules. I can't imagine how bad we could have misunderstood something, because it's not like we accidentally threw a little gun paraphernalia into our ad for a webinar about how to make a better website. But, if your AI isn't sophisticated enough, and by the way, I didn't put this screenshot in, but one of the emails I sometimes got from Facebook when I asked for the reasons is they said, for security reasons, we cannot tell you where you violated the rules. Because if we told people how our system works that attempts to find rule breakers, then people could figure out how to circumvent the rules. In other words, if we told you what you were doing that was causing us to think you broke the rules, you might just find a way to circumvent it. But the problem is, the main way to circumvent the AI that identifies rule breaking is to not break the rules. And yet, obviously, there are rules being enforced by this AI which are not listed in the rule book, so to speak, or it's just friggin' broken, right? So the last part of my little story here is a couple weeks after that, those other emails that I was showing, I think this most recent one was October 20th or October 17th. 2 weeks later, I get this from Facebook. As a valued member of our community, you've been selected. This is from Facebook ads, by the way. This isn't just Facebook in general. It's Facebook advertising. As a valued member of our community, you've been selected to participate in a survey about Facebook marketing tools. We'd like to hear from you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just share this for some humor, right? Obviously, it's an absurd story. But I would ask you, is there anything that you're doing today, whether it uses AI or not, that gives your customer this kind of absurd dystopian experience? And further, I would suggest, and I don't know all the ins and the outs of how Facebook makes these decisions or exactly what's done by an algorithm, but I would suggest to you that as your business becomes more and more algorithm driven, you get many, and are AI driven, you can get many benefits from that, but you can also create horror shows for your customer if you're not extremely careful. And as you give that AI too much power, you can basically turn customers away. And in this case, Facebook's not just taking a customer and making them not want to be a customer. They're literally refusing to take not only my money, but the money of thousands and thousands of advertisers, some of whom spend millions and millions of dollars with Facebook and are really, truly doing nothing wrong. I applaud them for putting processes in place to try to block companies that are bad actors. But clearly, as they say, the false positive rate is quite substantial, and that's a problem. So that's something you need to be mindful of as a real pitfall when you drive things too much with AI. And I just want to end with this sort of thought, which is, I think our relationship with computers is, on a journey, right? The first thing we were doing with computers was we were telling them what to do, right? I mean, you started with a calculator, right? Or a spreadsheet. I want you to take these numbers and I want you to add them up for me, right? That's a long way from the Terminator deciding to destroy humanity, right? The computer is our slave, and it is simply doing exactly what we want it to do. We then started to build computers that were smart enough to start to tell us what to do, like the GPS in my car. I tell it where I want to go, but then it tells me what to do. It tells me turn left, turn right, switch lanes. And I'm essentially putting myself in a mode where I am following the instructions of the computer. And it's not just a GPS. If you go to a pharmacist and they're filling out prescriptions, it's telling them which, if you go to a warehouse, the system is telling the person where to get the item, what size box to put it in, what service, whether FedEx or UPS or DHL or whatever, to send it by. We have many, many businesses that have become more automated through computers who've been programmed to tell people what to do. So instead of people telling computers what to do, we now have computers telling people what to do. But the next phase is this idea that we hear people talking about all the time of the algorithm. And it's not just YouTube. Take something like search, right? What is SEO all about really? But figuring out how can I make my content more appealing to the algorithm? Obviously, we've been talking about advertising, and I'm not able to advertise on Facebook because somehow I've done things, and I don't even know what they are, that the algorithm doesn't like. And there are people who've created whole training courses on how to not trip up the Facebook algorithm. And many of the things they tell you to do are inherently, there's nothing wrong with them. Just don't use this word because the algorithm doesn't like it. Don't use pictures of cats. The algorithm doesn't like it. Stuff that sounds downright crazy. It sounds like you're just trying to appeal to this kind of weird, eccentric person who you just have to know what their idiosyncrasies are. So we find more and more human effort being put into not just doing what a computer tells you to do, but trying to sort of psychoanalyze the computer, psychoanalyze the algorithm, try to figure out what does it like? What does it want from us? And obviously that's true on social media posting as well. I'm sure we've all had this experience where you post one thing on social media and 10 people see it, and you post something else on social media and all of a sudden it goes viral and tons of people see it. Well, that's partly because people liked it, but it's also a lot to do with the fact that the algorithm may have decided to boost it, may have decided to put it in front of a lot more people. Now, why is that? Well, there's all kinds of work that goes on to try to figure out, again, how can I make my social media content more appealing to the algorithm? What is it about me and my content that the computer will like? So I'm not just doing what the computer says, I'm literally trying to figure out how to like the computer. Now we're seeing technology which is trying to use AI to evaluate job performance, right? There are people whose whole job, all the data around what they do in their job all day long is being fed into AI, and this is a nascent area. Most job performance today is not evaluated by computers, but this is an area that's evolving. There may be a day when your raise and your performance review is determined by an algorithm, just like the algorithm that determines who should be top on Google search or which ads should be booted off of Facebook. Imagine your whole job performance is being determined not by a human, but by an algorithm. And your goal in terms of moving your career forward is to figure out, how can I get that algorithm to like me more? Well, we're taking one step closer to Skynet, right? We're getting to the point where we're giving the computers and the algorithms and the technology so much influence over us that instead of figuring out how they can serve us, we are trying to figure out how we can serve them. And obviously I failed to do that with Facebook, right? I failed to figure out what is it that Facebook wants from me. And again, the people at Facebook were lovely. The people at Facebook that interacted with me apologized to me. They told me I was valued. They tried to help me figure out how to overcome the problem, but they couldn't because they weren't as powerful as the algorithm. And when the algorithm didn't like me, eventually it just became one of those, yeah, I'm sorry, there's just nothing more I can do for you. I can't tell you why the algorithm doesn't like you, but it just doesn't. So, tough luck, buddy. And that was kind of where I ended with Facebook. So I don't think you want your company going that way, right? I don't think that's going to benefit your employees. I don't think that's going to benefit your customers. I don't think that's going to benefit your shareholders. I don't know if we now have this, normally I think of a business as having the triangle of those three entities, right? What's good for the shareholders, what's good for the employees, and what's good for the customers. I don't know if we need to start to open that up to a cube and say, no. We need to think about what's good for the algorithm, because if the algorithm is not happy, then no one else will be happy. Hopefully we're not headed there, and I'm not saying we're there yet, but I just wanted to point out some of these warning signs because we're heading in that direction. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I want to encourage you to just take a look at your own organization and make sure anything you can learn from Facebook, you're steering in a different direction so your organization does not become the next Facebook or the next Skynet. Hopefully this has been useful for you. I encourage you to check out my book, Winning Digital Customers, available on Amazon or at winningdigitalcustomers.com. Check out our podcast, and I will see you on the next one of these live casts. Have a great day and a great inauguration.